Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's C-O-M-B-E-S-T, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?
Hey, it's me, Egbert. E-G-G-B-U-R-T. Check out my website at egbert.com. Now it's back to those two dudes who told me they would bring in big ratings. They better are their history. Here are Brad and John.
You know, I like that music so much I decided to let it run a little longer this morning, you know, just...
Is that right? Yeah, what song was that, Brad?
I have no idea what it is. It's some crazy music. John, apologize, run a little bit late this morning, had some technical difficulties, but you know what? I got the bubble gum and the razor blades out, got everything all patched up, and away we go. It is hump day. It's Shelley's favorite day, if we're still doing the BS show. Hold on a minute, I got a cough. Right off the get-go. That is John Combest. I am Brad. John Combest is the important guy of the duo here. He's the guy that every single day for 22 years puts together a list of all the important things going on in the state of Missouri as far as political events, things going on with, you know, various political entities, politicians, all the stuff that affects you ultimately in a couple of different ways in your pocketbook and where you live and what you drive and all that kind of stuff. He puts together this entire list. We start the show off every morning with the top three. We bring in this guy by the name of...
I'm Casey Kasem.
And what he does is...
Now on with the countdown.
And he counts them down, and we start off with...
In third place...
Local elections all across the state yesterday, Brad. Let's start close to home, and I hope we get back to that. Maybe in the next segment we'll get back to that. But then close to home, Brad, the headline from the St. Louis Post-Dispatch via STL today is right-wing candidates defeated in school board elections across the St. Louis area. This is brought to us by content creators Blythe Bernard and Monica Obradovic. Now, both of these reporters have covered the Francis Howell School District, Black Lives Matter, critical race theory issues over the last few months. So we see Missouri media today, particularly in the St. Louis area, taking a real victory lap, Brad, because conservatives lost in that Francis Howell election. I'm sure we'll get back to that in a little bit. Would just also mention two other issues that folks across the state are paying attention to, and that is over in Kansas City, attacks for a downtown stadium, for the Royal Stadium, failed yesterday. And it was a sales tax vote. I have one and only one link up today. Tony Bateo from Tony's Kansas City has a compendium, a amalgamation, if you will, of various local stories that are dissecting how that defeat of the sales tax happened yesterday. And then the third one real quick, Brad. There's a woman who's been very involved in the school choice issue. She generally opposes school choice. She's with a group called Armorvine. She is the president of the Camdenton School Board, and she narrowly lost re-election yesterday. And I know that sounds like a minor local thing, but she's been a very significant voice as it comes to charter school issues, DESE, whether or not these agencies should have influence over homeschoolers and charter schools, et cetera. So that's one that's a little bit inside baseball, but it's one that Capitol followers will be paying attention to.
Okay, here we go.
Up a notch to number two.
Number two.
Well, the silence has ended, Brad, when it comes to who BLuetkemeyer wants to follow him into Congress. And the answer to that is Kurt Schaefer, the opponent of Bob Onder in the 3rd Congressional District primary. BLuetkemeyer was on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Of course, that's Stephanie Bell's show. Was on Stephanie's show and talked a little bit about the problems that he has with what he considers folks in the far right. He sees Kurt Schaefer as being somebody who's a little bit more of a deal maker, somebody who's a little bit more to, I guess you could say, that doesn't view compromise as a dirty word. I'm sure that's how Blaine and Kurt would put it. And, you know, what's really funny is when Blaine announced that he wasn't running, Blaine went on Scott Fawn's show, This Week in Missouri Politics, midweek update, and said hey, and Scott asked him, hey, do you plan on endorsing anybody in this race? And Blaine said, no, I have no plans to do that. And Jonathan Ratliff, who's a top Republican consultant and very close to Blaine, after Blaine was done and after Blaine was off the show, Jonathan's like, yeah, I don't think Blaine was right there. I could imagine that Blaine will surely endorse in this race. So maybe Blaine misunderstood the question or something, but clearly Blaine Luetkemeyer wants to pick his successor here, and he has chosen Kurt Schaefer over Bob Onder.
And moving right along to
The number one.
In the wake of the Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl shooting, you'll remember, Brad, that there was a whole lot of hubbub. There were very early reports and memes of an alleged illegal alien who was sitting on a curb, and the social media post said, look at this illegal alien. He has been identified and he is the shooter in Kansas City. Now, 3 Republican state senators shared those tweets, Brad. And they are Nick Schroer from St. Charles County. They are Denny Hoskins from Warrensburg, excuse me, and Rick Bratton, who's from Harrisonville on the other side of the state. And this man who actually lives in Kansas is suing these 3 state senators. Of course, he's, claiming distress, anxiety, loss of sleep, and he wants damages in excess of $75,000. His attorney, who, according to the Kansas City Star, is a longtime Kansas City civil rights lawyer, says that the idea is really to make these lawmakers pay some kind of a price and to set a precedent against sharing incorrect social media information. Now, I think this is interesting because, Brad, you and I talk a little bit about social media on the show, and the idea of the fact that we do have elected officials who did choose to share information that was incorrect. Where is the level of legal accountability in it? Should there be any? There's folks that say that these guys shouldn't even offer an apology to the gentleman whose name they spread by retweeting. But also, I think from their perspective, they would say, hey, all I did was retweet something. It wasn't my original content. So where does the responsibility and the legal liability fall?
I tell you what, John, since we're dealing with a truncated show this morning, I told you we'd do it in 2 segments. Let's go ahead and do it in 3 segments. So what we're going to do is we'll call that segment done right there. And I've taken my careful notes because there's things I want to talk about, which you brought up. Actually, all 3 of the things. You had some really good ones this morning. So what we're going to do is, as soon as I get this computer fixed, and let me do this, and go down to here. Oh, my God. You know what? It's to the point where we love computers, but we hate computers, right? Okay.
I got you, Brad. I know what it's like, brother.
Yeah. No, you do as well, too. Okay, we're going to take a break. We'll be right back.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's C-O-M-B-E-S-T, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?